Welcome back to Vim Essential Plugins. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at one of the most popular Vim plugins ever made, and it's called NERDTree. So you can think of NERDTree as a replacement for the File Explorer. It makes it a little more similar to what you might be used to in TextMate. So let's go ahead and get this downloaded. But as we learned, if we want the most recent version, we should always download it on GitHub because, again, this was last updated in 2009, but if we go to the GitHub version, clicking here, we can see that it was updated as recently of March of 2011. All right, so let's go ahead and bring this in. I'm within my desktop, and I'm just going to run a git clone and download those files. Now, if I exit out of here and we open up the folder, what you'll see here is that there's a rake file. And when there is, that means it'll go ahead and install it for us. So this is yet another way to install some plugins if they offer that option. So let's list the files and browse into NERDTree, list it again, and you can see that rake. So I'm going to call it rake. And now you'll see it's installing these files, and it knows to find it within the .vim directory. Cool, so it's already installed. We're all set to go. All right, so let's see how we can use this now. So we need something to work with, right? And we're going to find a big directory structure because if you're working with maybe an index file, a style sheet, it's not a big deal to have a kick-butt file explorer. But if you're working with a framework, maybe like Rails, you really need something because you're going to be moving from file to file. So with that in mind, let's browse back to the desktop, and I'm going to create a new Rails directory. Don't worry if you're not a Rails developer, it's just to give us a folder structure, and we'll call it testing. Okay, and that directory has been created, so we'll cd into it, and we're going to open that up in Mac Vim. So as you can see here, we have all of these different directory structures, and it can be a pain by default to look into these, right? All right, so with NERDTree installed, we can trigger it by typing NERDTree, and notice the capitalization of nerd. So if we open this up, now you'll see that we get this sidebar, and it feels a little more like you might be used to in TextMate. If you want, you can even use the mouse. So if we want to go into apps and go into a controller and open up the application controller, you'll see that it'll automatically load that in the buffer to the right. Very cool. And of course, you can still do it manually. So if we want to open up a view, let's open up the application layout view, and you'll see that it adds a new buffer and still loads it in the same area. But along with NERDTree, that alone is very cool. It makes it a little more helpful. We can use a lot of different options. So you'll see up here, press $? For help. Okay. Open that up, and it'll show you all the different options we have. If I hit that again, it'll close out. By default, if I want to open something, I can press O, or in the same way, Enter will achieve the exact same effect. If we go back to the help, you see we have these options right here. I will open it in split mode. S will open it in a V split. So what this means is let's find a new one. Let's go to config and go down to our routes. And now if I type S, you'll see that that creates a V split and opens the file like so. Now, NERDTree also has support for bookmarks, and this is an easy way to immediately go back to an important directory. So let's say, for example, we're going to browse back up, and TIS testing, I'm going to be working on it this week, so I want to make sure I can easily access it. If I hit B, you'll see that there's an option here for my bookmarks, and you can see I already have some. So if we want to turn this into a bookmark, I can write bookmark, and we'll call it testing. So now you'll see that little option show up right here. Whenever I press B, anywhere within my directory structure, so let's say I'm on the desktop, if I ever want to go back, I can type B, browse down to testing, and I'm immediately within that directory. And then I only have to press B again to toggle that. Now, another one that I use so often is the ability to automatically switch directories. And what I mean by that is if I scroll down here within the help file, you'll see this section right here, and we're going to look at CD and C. So if I type CD, that'll change the working directory to the selected directory. And then also C will change the tree root. So let's see what I mean by that. Let's browse back up, and let's say we want to go into the public directory, and this is where we would store our style sheets and index files. Now, if I check the present working directory, it's set to testing. But if I want to create new files or things like that, I want to change the working directory. So I can easily do that by typing CD, similar to what you would do in the terminal. And now if I type it again, you'll see that it's automatically been updated. So now if I don't want to see the rest of these parent nodes, I can easily switch to this specific directory by typing C. And now you'll see that I'm only within it. And again, the present working directory is set to public. And that's really it. So if I want to close the NERDTree window, I can type Q for quit. And then of course, if you want to bring it back up, you just type it again, NERDTree. But of course, most of the time you'll map that to something like liter NT for \NT. So let me know if you have any questions. If you ever forget any of these symbols, just press question mark and it has all of these available to you, and I highly recommend you use it. For more tips and tutorials and more Vim Essential Plugins, always subscribe to us. Thanks.